Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time we're going to be talking about something that I think everybody has a bit of experience with: why consumer culture feels so broken. Our main source today is this really insightful document called Why Consumer Culture is Broken. And it might just change the way you think about your next shopping trip.
Yeah, it's really interesting how this document kind of brings together these everyday things, like just grabbing a video game or ordering some takeout and connects that to these huge, like, systemic issues. Really
Yeah.
makes you kind of step back and look at your place in the whole system.
It's definitely more than just complaining about bad products or terrible customer service, right? We're really going deep here to uncover the reasons behind all the stuff we buy. And maybe even more importantly, how we as consumers and the companies that make all this stuff contribute to the problem. I think we're in for some surprises along the way.
Yeah, definitely. One of the biggest things for me that I realized reading through this was this idea of the production delusion.
Okay, that sounds kind of intense. Break that down for me a little bit.
All right, so think of it like this. As consumers, we really only see the finished product, right? We miss the whole, the journey, all the mess that happened to get it there. The document uses a really good example. Video games. They can take years to develop. Huge teams, tons of hours testing revisions, all before they hit the shelves.
I'm definitely guilty of that. See, a cool new game, I think, must have it now.
Hmm.
No clue what went into making the thing.
And, that lack of awareness, that really feeds into all these unrealistic expectations we all have, that instant gratification. We demand perfection.
Yeah.
And even like this dismissal of all the expertise and effort it took to make the product.
Yeah, we're just so used to things like, I don't know, 2-day shipping and everything on demand. We've kind of lost touch with how much time and effort goes into making anything real.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
that disconnect, I think, is a huge part of this sense of entitlement that the document talks
Mhm.
about. It
Yeah.
makes you wonder, if we all understood the work behind the product, would we be so quick to dismiss it? Would we be so quick to criticize it?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Let's shift gears a little bit, though. Where does capitalism fit into all of this? Because the document points to capitalism as like a big driver of this whole broken consumer culture.
Yeah. Capitalism with its, the need for profit,
Hmm.
it kind of puts producers in a difficult situation. They need to appeal to as many people as possible, that mass appeal to make sure that they sell as much as they can. And the document makes the argument that this constant pressure to cater to everyone often leads to products that are just kind of bland and
Like
soulless.
trying to make a playlist that everybody at a party will like. You end up with something that's super generic and nobody really loves.
Ugly. And then you get to like the even darker side of it. When appealing to the lowest common denominator isn't enough to stay competitive, companies, they start using some pretty questionable tactics.
Hmm.
The document calls out addictive design, like apps that are made to keep you hooked, and planned obsolescence, where products are designed to break down so you have to buy new ones, and all this manipulative marketing that plays on our insecurities and our desires.
Ugh, those definitely get me sometimes. It's frustrating too. Because, cheaper prices often mean compromises, like lower quality, questionable labor practices, harm to the environment. But the document isn't saying that capitalism is completely bad, right?
Not at all.
Mm.
I mean, capitalism can also drive innovation and specialization. Think about
Okay.
those small businesses, the niche creators making really unique things for specific audiences. So, it's a bit of a double-edged sword.
Okay, so we've got this complex system where producers are trying to balance profit with quality, while at the same time facing all this pressure to appeal to everyone. But where do we as consumers fit into all of this? What about this idea of consumer entitlement? Is it fair to say that we're all just spoiled?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. This document argues that entitlement isn't just some personality flaw. It's actually a result of several factors. A lot of things we don't even realize are influencing us.
Okay, I'm intrigued now. What are these mysterious factors?
Well, think about all those marketing messages we've been bombarded with for like decades.
Hmm.
The customer's always right. Sounds really nice. But it actually sets up these unrealistic expectations. We're basically conditioned to think that every single whim we have should be catered to, even if it's completely unreasonable.
Oh, yeah, I've totally fallen into that trap. I catch myself thinking they should have this in my size, or why don't they offer this feature? As if every single product should be made specifically for me.
Exactly. And then you add in the fact that we often get emotionally attached to the things we buy. They become reflections of our identity, our aspirations, our values. So when something goes wrong or it doesn't live up to the hype, it feels personal.
It's like it's not just a broken gadget or a disappointing movie, it's like a hit to our ego.
Right. And then there's this explosion of information that we all have at our fingertips now. which is great in theory,
Yeah.
but it also creates this illusion that we're all experts.
Just because you read a bunch of Amazon reviews doesn't mean you understand product design or how to run a business, right?
The document makes a really good point. Intelligence doesn't equal wisdom. Having an opinion isn't the same as having informed knowledge.
You could watch a YouTube tutorial on fixing a leaky faucet. Doesn't make you a plumber.
So we've got these marketing myths, emotional investments, and this false sense of expertise all coming together to create like this perfect storm of entitlement.
So how does all of this play out in the real world? How does this entitlement actually show itself?
Well, the document gives some pretty vivid examples. Like
Yeah.
think about like those people you see online that get outraged because a product doesn't come in their favorite color, or it's missing some feature that they really wanted, or those people that leave like one-star reviews because a game or a movie didn't meet their super specific expectations, even if like tons of other people loved it.
Yeah, I see that all the time. It's like some people think that every single product should cater to their individual needs. Like they forget that companies are trying to make something that'll appeal to a wider audience.
Right? It goes back to that production delusion we were talking about. They're not seeing the bigger picture of a company trying to make something for lots of different people. And the document also talks about this other thing, like a time is sacred type of complaint,
Yeah.
where people get upset because they think producers are wasting their time with a certain product or piece of content.
Yeah, that one always gets me. It just seems so disrespectful. Like they're saying, your art isn't worth my time, and totally ignoring all the years of passion and skill and effort that went into making that thing.
Exactly. It's like they think these products just magically appear,
Yeah.
perfectly made, with no understanding of all the limitations and the compromises that happen in the real world when you make anything.
Right.
Like there's this disconnect between the effort and the value.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's even like this moral thing, people demanding absolute perfection without understanding that you have to make trade-offs when you create anything.
Speaking of frustration, though, the document makes this point that I thought was really interesting. It's not always about being spoiled or unreasonable. Sometimes this entitlement feeling comes from legitimate bad experiences. Consumers have been burned by, subpar products or companies that put profit over people.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And there's often this feeling of powerlessness too,
Yeah.
especially when you're dealing with these huge corporations, these monopolies. It's hard to feel like your voice matters when you're just one customer out of millions. And then social media just amplifies it all, this echo chamber where it's all negativity and outrage.
Social media definitely doesn't help. It's all about being the loudest and getting attention. Nuance just gets completely lost. But, let's change gears again a little bit. There was something else that I thought was really insightful in the document. It said that, buying stuff isn't always this purely rational thing. It's really deeply tied to our emotions. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's one of the most fascinating things about consumer culture to me.
Yeah.
The things we buy become these reflections of our identity, our values, our aspirations. Think about like,
Right.
those sneakers that make you feel cool, or that gadget that promises to like make your life so much easier. We buy things that make us feel good, things that show other people who we are or who we want to be.
Right. So when those things don't work out or we feel like we were tricked, it's a much bigger emotional response than just, oh, this is broken. It's almost like a betrayal.
Exactly. It's not just the product. It's how that product made us feel, the image we thought it would give us.
Mm.
And then there's the whole pressure from society. We're always told that we deserve the best, that we need the latest and greatest things to be happy. And then we see everybody on social media, those perfect curated lives, people with tons of stuff. It's easy to start comparing and feeling like you're not good enough, that you need more to keep up. So you end up with this feeling of entitlement and insecurity. That's hard to get rid of.
Right. It's all connected. Those marketing myths, our emotional attachments, and all the pressure from society. That's why this whole consumer culture feels so broken. But is there any hope for fixing it? Does the document offer any solutions?
It does. And it's not about blaming one side or the other. It gives some really practical advice for both consumers and producers. For consumers, it starts with education. We need to really understand the work and the skill, all the resources that go into making the things we buy. Move past that production delusion and appreciate the whole journey behind the product.
So having more empathy for the people who make the things we use, that seems like a good first step. What else?
Another important thing is managing our expectations. No single product can be everything for everyone. It's okay if that new phone doesn't have every single feature you can imagine, or if a movie doesn't perfectly match your tastes.
So being more realistic, understanding that nothing's perfect.
Exactly. And this next one is so important. Practice gratitude. Take a minute to just appreciate the time and the skill, the creativity that people put into their work. It's a simple change, but it makes a big difference.
Okay, so those are some great tips for us consumers, but what about the companies? What can they do to build a better relationship with their customers?
The document suggests that producers should be more transparent, share the challenges of their work, the reality of the whole production process. Let people see the human side of creation.
Yeah, showing that human side definitely helps people understand and relate more. Anything else companies can do?
Another key thing is setting boundaries. Not giving in to every single demand. Sometimes you got to say no to protect your creative vision
Yeah.
or the quality of your product.
Right. Sometimes saying no is the best way to make sure you're making something good. And the document really emphasizes that, doesn't it? The importance of quality and authenticity.
Absolutely. Even if that means that you appeal to a smaller audience, make something truly special for the people who really appreciate it. Don't try to please everybody.
I love that idea. Choosing quality over quantity, craftsmanship over just mass production. But this feels bigger than just individual actions, right? It feels like we need a system-wide change in how we view consumption and production.
You're absolutely right. The document really pushes this idea that we need a cultural shift. Moving away from that, the customer's always right mentality, and towards something more like mutual respect, understanding that both consumers and producers have a part to play in this.
So it's more like a partnership than a battle.
Exactly. What if both sides valued each other's contributions and understood how complex this whole system is? The document even talks about something called ethical capitalism, where businesses focus on sustainability and craftsmanship, not just short-term profits.
What would that look like in real life? Do you know any companies that actually do that?
Yeah, Patagonia is a great example. They're really committed to environmental sustainability and fair labor practices, and they make high-quality stuff that lasts. They've even run campaigns encouraging people to buy less and repair the things they already own. They're not just selling products, they're promoting a different way of thinking about consuming.
That's a perfect example. It shows that this ethical capitalism idea isn't just a dream.
Exactly. And that leads into the whole idea of sustainable consumption. We need to shift our values, to choose quality over quantity, and be more mindful about what we buy instead of just impulse buying.
So being more intentional about what we bring into our lives, thinking about the impact our choices have on the environment and on other people, this all sounds great, but how do we actually make it happen? It feels kind of overwhelming.
It does seem like a big challenge, but the document leaves us with some really interesting questions to think about. Like,
Yeah.
it asks us to imagine, what a consumer culture would look like if it was based on collaboration and appreciation and realistic expectations.
Yeah, that's a pretty compelling vision. What if we really understood the value of the things we buy and the people who make them?
Imagine a world where consumers were more aware of the true cost of things and producers prioritized quality and ethical practices, and the whole system was built on mutual respect and, shared values.
That sounds amazing. It's like we took all the best parts of consumer culture, the innovation and the creativity and the choice, but got rid of all the bad stuff like exploitation and just mindless consumption.
It's like shifting from transactions to relationships, not just seeing products as objects, but understanding that they're the result of, human creativity and effort.
It makes you wonder, what can we do to make that happen?
The document doesn't really give us a step-by-step plan, but it does leave us with this call to action. It starts with our own choices, being more conscious about what we buy, supporting companies that do things the right way, and demanding better from the businesses we interact with.
It's not just about buying less right. It's about buying better, choosing quality over quantity, things that will last instead of things you just throw away, and focusing on experiences rather than just accumulating more stuff.
Exactly. Our purchases have power. They're like votes for the kind of world we want to live in.
So as we go about our day, let's all think about the things we buy, the people who made them, and the impact those choices have on everything around us.
Maybe, just maybe, we can start to change this broken system into something better, a consumer culture that works for everyone, not just a few.
Well, this has been a really eye-opening deep dive. It's given me a lot to think about, and I hope it's done the same for you. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.